Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone as we begin Masechet Eruvin together. The Masechta opens up with the way they had situated in Chazal. All of the houses that they had really shared one chotzer. And each chotzer then went into a mavui. So you'd have several chatzeros that would join and enter into the mavui. A mavui is an alley. There's two different types of mavos. One mavui is called a mavui mefulash. And that means that it's opened up on two sides to the Rishus Harabim. Another mavui is that it's closed on three sides and it has only one entrance to the Rishus Harabim. Our Mishnah discusses a mavui that is sasum, where it's closed on three sides and only open to one side as an entrance to the Rishus Harabim. Chazal were concerned that even though the mavui is technically a Rishus Hayachi, whereby you could walk and carry in that Rishus Hayachi, in that mavui, but they were concerned that if one would be permitted to do so, since this is an area that the Rabbim use, they might confuse it with the Rishus Harabim and think that you can also carry Daled Amos in the Rishus Harabim. So therefore they required a tikkun. For a person to carry in the mavui, they required that there be either what's called a lechi, a side post, which is required to be at least asara tfachim at the entrance on the side of the Rishus Harabim, or alternatively, a beam called a kara, which is across the top of the entrance of the mavui. The Mishnah now discusses the positioning of this kara to then mesakein the mavui. Says the Mishnah, mavui shehu gavoya lemala me'esrim amma yimait. A crossbeam, if it's higher than 20 amos, that means that there's a halal, an airspace between the ground and the crossbeam of 20 amos, then you have to be ma'it, because that would not be a valid tikkun. And therefore you can be ma'it, you can then diminish that airspace by either lowering the kara, the crossbeam, or raising the karka. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer Eino Tzarich. Rabbi Yehuda says you do not need to lower it. He holds that even if it's beyond 20 amos, it's also going to be something that's a valid tikkun. The Machlokis is explained that the Tanakama holds that it's required to be no higher than 20 amos, because otherwise there will not be a heker to the people who are in the mavui to then make a distinction between the mavui and the Rishus Harabim. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says no, that it's considered to still be a heker enough, even if it's beyond 20 amos. The Mishnah continues, V'harachav me'eser amos yemait. If there is a widening that is greater than 10 amos, one must also diminish that 10 amos width. In other words, a Pesach is understood that there will be some sort of opening to the wall, and therefore that Pesach is part of the Mechitza. However, if the Pesach is wider than 10 amos, it's not considered to be a Pesach any longer. It's not part of the Mechitza. Rather, it's a Pirza, and it's Mevatel the Mechitza. So if you have that wall, that opening going to be beyond 10 amos wide, then is no longer considered a wall that you can go ahead and make a tikkun, either the crossbeam or the lechi. In order to mesakin it, the Mishnah will tell us, you have to make a tzuras ha-pesach. Says the Mishnah, V'im yesh lo tzuras ha-pesach, afa pishahu rachav me'eser amos, ein tzorich l'mayit. But if you make a tzuras ha-pesach, which is a kana mikan and a kana mikan, and a kana me'al gabehen, that means you have a reed on one end of the entrance and another reed on the other end of the entrance, and above those two reeds is a horizontal reed, then that is going to then be a tzuras ha-pesach, and that's going to be again making a valid mechitza. The Gemara now discusses that which we stated in the beginning of our Mishnah, that the cross beam cannot be higher than 20 amos. Tnan Hasam, there's a Mishnah that's stated in Masechet Sukkah in the very first Mishnah. Sukkah shehi gavoya lemalo me esrim amma psula. It states over there in regards to the schach. If the schach is higher than esrim amma, it means again the halal, the airspace between the ground and the schach is 20 amos. Then it's poisil the sukkah. And the lashon of the Mishnah is again sukkah shehi gavoya lemalo me esrim amma psula. It's invalid. Rabbi Yehuda Machshir. Rabbi Yehuda says it can still be valid even if it's beyond 20 amos. Ask the Gemara, what is this language that's inconsistent? Maishno gabe sukkah detani psula, begabe mavui tani takanta. In the Mishnah over there in Sukkah, it states if it's beyond 20 amos in height, then it's psula. Yet over here, it says yimait. Why the change of the lashon between the Mishnayos? Answers the Gemara, Sukkah di araisa tani psula, mavi di rabbonon tani takanta. Since Sukkah is midiaraisa, from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, there was already a requirement that a valid Sukkah be 20 amos high. That means beyond 20 amos, if the schach is beyond 20 amos, is pasul. So therefore, it's valid to state that we already know the din, whereby the Mishnah says if it's higher than 20 amos, then it's psula. But in the case of mavui, since it's a rabbinic enactment, therefore we don't yet know that there's such a concept of a mavui having a crossbeam within 20 amos. So therefore, it's stated in such a way that it's yemait, that if it's beyond the 20 amos, you must lower it. Because once then we are established, then we know that if you have to lower it, it has to be lower than 20 amos. We can't first say that it's possible when we don't know yet that it can't be higher than 20 amos. So again, midiraisa, when something that's already established, then we can say psula, it's invalid. But if we don't yet know if something is required to be a certain height, then we can't say psula, and therefore we give it a lashon of yemait atikun. The bois ema, alternatively, the Gemara brings another reason for this distinction. The araisa nami tani takanta. Even the araisa we find in places that the lashon of takana is used. So why don't we also be consistent and say the same way that over here in our Mishnah it says yemait a lashon of takana, a tikun. So why don't we also give a remedy, a lashon of tikun in the Mishnayos in Sukkah? Ela Sukkah de nefishin mile posik v'tani psula. Mavui de lo nefishin mile tani takanta. The distinction is because in the Mishnah in Sukkah, there it states several different halachos. And therefore, because of the additional wording, if you would have to then specify and say over here, in this case of the height of the schach, yemait, then the next halacha, when it talks about, for example, that the walls of the sukkah have to be at least 3 walls, so you have to say, have to be more than just 2 walls. And if you want to talk about that the sun not be greater than the shade, then you also have to then specify that. So in order to then make it concise and succinct, the Mishnah stated psula. So once it's psula in the case of not higher than 20 amos, it stated psula, that's going to then be a valid language for all of the cases. Whereas in the case of mavui, here we're stating one halacha, and therefore we can say yemait. Take a look at Rashi in the last third or quarter of the Amud, Dibra Maschil de Nefishe Mile. Rashi explains that in regards to Mishnah and Sukkah, there are much wording. Diktani Hasam. It states over there in Sukkah, V'she'ein lo shalosh defanos. It says another halacha that a Sukkah requires at least 3 defanos, 3 walls. V'she'ein al gavoya asara. And it also states that it's invalid if it doesn't have each wall at least 10 tefachim. And also is invalid if it has more sun than shade. So therefore, if it's specified each one, then it would have to change the language and it would be more verbose. Says Rashi, posik v'tani psul, therefore taught one word as posul. Now it can state the word psula, which is going to be valid for all of these cases. Di'i hava tani takanto, if it would teach a remedy, a tikkun, lo hava matzi li'erbuvinu v'lemasninu. We would not be able to then put them all together because each one is distinct for its halacha. As follows: the b'shein la shalosh defonois. If something does not have 3 walls in a sukkah, then boila misni ya'aseh ladoif, and you have to teach it needs to have an additional wall. And if it doesn't have asar tfachim for the height of each wall, you'd have to lift it up. You have to get higher than 10 tfachim, which again is another type of tikkun. You have to say Yosif al schacha. You'd have to then say there should be more schach, so there'll be more sail, more shade than the sun. And we're taught in the beginning of Masechet Psochim, lo olam yishne adam letalmidoi derech ksara. A person should always teach the student in a way that is succinct. And therefore, that's why it teaches in the Mishnah in Sukkah psula, whereas over here, in regards to the Mishnah in Eruvin, it can teach Yirmiyahu, the tikkun. Says the Gemara weiter, the Gemara now wants to explain the 2 different shitas that we saw in our Mishnah in regards to the height of this crossbeam. Again, according to the Tanakama, the Chachamim, it can only be up to Esrim Amma. Higher than that, then it's going to be then invalid. Whereas in the case of Rabbi Yehuda's shita, that it can even be higher than Esrim Amma. Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Omar Rav. Rav Yehuda saying the name of Rav to explain these 2 shitas. Chachamim loy lamdo ela mipischos shel heichal. The Chachamim learned out this din that it can't be higher than Esrim Amma from the Pesach, the entranceway of the heichal in the Mishkan. Rabbi Yehuda loy lamdo ela mipischos shel ulam. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda learned it out from the Pesach, the entranceway of the ulam. In other words, both of those things are different places where we find an entranceway. So according to the Chachamim, we find the Heichal had an entranceway of 20 amos, and therefore higher than that would be invalid. Whereas according to Rabbi Yehuda, we find that the ulam is considered to be an entranceway whereby it can be higher than 20 amos. This not, for it states in the Mishnah, Pischoy shel heichal govhoy esrim amo v'rachboy eser amos. In regards to the door, the entranceway of the heichal, it can be a height of 20 amos, and the width is 10 amos. Sorry, is 20 amos. Sorry, it's 10 amos. Again, the height of the entranceway of the heichal is 20 amos, and the width is 10 amos. V'shel ulam gavoy arboim amma v'rochvoy esim amma. Whereas the ulam, it states in the Mishnah, has a height of 40 amos and the width of 20 amos. And therefore, each one is going after either the heichal or the ulam. According to the Chachamim, we go after the heichal, and therefore the height can be only valid up to 20 amos. Whereas according to, again, Rabbi Yehuda, the ulam is even higher than 20 amos. Ushnei mikra echad darshan, they both darshan the same pasuk. It says in the pasuk, Ushchotoi pesach oyhel moed. In regards to the oyel moed in the Mishkan, it says it's that they would shecht the animal at the entrance way of the oyel moed. Now the oyel moed contained within it, in the Mishkan, it had the golden mizbeach where they put up the incense, the ketaris. It had the golden menorah. It also had the lechem haponim. And that was the heichal. In the interior part was the kodesh kadoshim. So it says over here, the rabbanan savre kedushas heichal lechud, the kedushas ulam lechud. It says that when regards to then the Beis HaMikdash, where it had also an ulam that wasn't present in the Mishkan, so there's 2 different types of kedusha. The kedusha in the heichal was a greater type of kedusha than the ulam. What you can do in the heichal, you could not do in the ulam. V'chiksiv pesach oyel moed a heichal ksiv, and therefore when it says in the pasuk oyel moed, it refers to the heichal. Rabbi Yehuda Sovar Heichal v'ulam kedusha achasi. He learns that the ulam and the heichal really are one entity. That means the entranceway, the ulam that goes into the heichal has the same level of kedusha. It's really an addendum. It's an attachment to the heichal. V'chiksiv Pesach oil moed, and that which it states in the pasuk, Pesach, the entranceway to the oil moed, it comes to include also the ulam in the Beis Hamikdash. Atravayu hu dichsiv, it's going not only on the heichal, it's also going on the ulam, and therefore we can say that the entranceway of the ulam, which was 40 amos, therefore is valid for a mavui as well. Vi bois ema. Alternatively, you can explain as follows: the Rabbi Yehuda nami kedushas ulam lechu v'kedushas heichal lechu. You can say that Rabbi Yehuda also says, according to the Chachamim, that both the ulam has its kedusha, the heichal has its separate kedusha. If so, how does Rabbi Yehuda learn that the ulam is the entrance way that we're referring to over here, that you can indeed have higher than 20 amos? The hocha hainu taimud Rabbi Yehuda dichsiv. He brings a pasuk. Now, really, this pasuk is a combination of two psukim in Yechezkel. And therefore, he puts together, it says, El Pesach El Ulam Habayis. There's one pasuk that says Pesach Habayis, and another pasuk that says Ulam Habayis, and he puts the two together as reading it, El Pesach, to the entranceway of the Ulam, of the house of the Bayis. So therefore, he learns from here that there's such a thing as the entranceway to the Ulam. And therefore, again, it could be higher than 20 amos. If it said the entranceway to the ulam, it had a pasuk that states that, then we would be moided to you. But But now that you have to write two things together and take the two psukim and put them as El Pesach Ulam Habayis, so therefore, habayis hapasuach leulam. It's referring to the bayis that is the entranceway to the ulam, which refers to the heichal. And therefore, again, according to the Chachamim, up to 20 amos is a valid entranceway, and therefore the mavui, the crossbeam, can only be up to 20 amos. Ask the Gemara v'haksiv hai b'mishkan ksiv. This what is written in regards to the Mishkan that was in the Midbar. It's not written for the Beis Hamikdash that was in Yerushalayim. And therefore, ask the Gemara, how can we then prove one way or the other from such a pasuk? The pasuk is talking about what took place in the Midbar, the Mishkan. Answers the Gemara, Eshkechon Mishkan the Ikri Mikdash, Umikdash the Ikri Mishkan. We find that in the Psukim, Mishkan is called Mikdash, and we also find that Mikdash is called Mishkan. If you don't say that this is so, Hoda Omar Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel Shlomim Sheshachtan Koidem Pesichas Delosses Hahecha Pesulin. If a korban shlomim is shechted before the opening of the doors to the heichal, then it's pasul. And he brings a pasuk, Shene'amar v'shachtu Pesach oil moed, and he shechs the animal at the entrance of the oil moed. That's pasuk that's referring to the Mishkan. Bisman shepsuchin, he learns from this pasuk, at the time that is pasuach, v'lo bisman shehein ne'ulin, and not when it's closed. V'hoksiv ahi b'mishkan ksiv. How can he learn this out in regards to a halacha in the Beis Hamikdash when this is a pasuk that is written in regards to the Mishkan? So we see that even though it's written in regards to the Mishkan, it refers to the Mikdash. Mikdash the ikri Mishkan, Mishkan the ikri Mikdash. Rather, you must say that indeed the Mikdash is called Mishkan and Mishkan is called Mikdash. Says the Gemara, Bishlama Mikdash the ikri Mishkan. That's fine. That's well to say that the Mikdash is called Mishkan. Dichsiv, we have a pasuk, V'nosati Mishkani b'soichachem. The pasuk says in Parshas Bechukosai in regards to the brachos, it says that Hashem says, I will put my Mishkan within you, in your midst. Now, he already had a Mishkan that was already erected. So he must be talking a promise about the future with regards to the Mikdash. Ela Mishkan the Ikri Mikdash Minolan. So where do we know the other way though? How do we know that indeed Mishkan is called Mikdash? We know that Mikdash is called Mishkan from the previous pasuk. But where do you know the opposite, that Mishkan is called Mikdash? If you want to say from the pasuk, it states, "V'nasu hakihosim nosei hamikdash," and the bnei kahos would travel carrying the mikdash. V'hikimu es hamishkan ad boyam, and the other Levim would then erect the mishkan before they're coming. On top of Beis, Amud Beis. Hahu be'aron ksiv. That which is said mikdash in the pasuk is reference to the Aron, that it's more kadosh than all of the other things that were carried. Ela mehacha. Rather, we have another open pasuk that teaches us this yesod. V'asulu li mikdash v'shochanti b'soicham. Hashem says, and you shall make for me a mikdash, referring to the Mishkan, and I will dwell within you.